Keith Miller here, and with me today is Dr. Gary Sheard.
Morning, Keith.
Hello, Gary. How are you today?
Not too bad. Lovely day.
Gary is the author of Awful Management, Turn Left or Right. Now, Gary, you and I are going to talk about this a little bit later on, but a lot of the people who are watching this at present, they don't really know you. So just kick us off. Tell us a bit more about you, particularly your career. I know folk can find you on LinkedIn, but just tell us a bit more about yourself.
Well, they always say it, the first thing a Yorkshireman tells you in the first 20 seconds is that he's from Yorkshire. So, hey, we hit that one. I'm from Yorkshire.
Good.
Family, half of the family are sort of mining community. The other half are business people, a combination of fish and chip shops and bookkeepers, as in race bookkeepers, so turf accountants. So that was the sort of ground stock. And age of 16, Dad kicked me out, go get a job, son. And I started working Yorkshire Copper Works in Leeds as a lab technician. So out on the shop floor, sawing bits off, taking them back to the boffins for them to analyse. And at the same time, I kept my education going, and then I was doing part-time ONC, as it was back in the 70s. And so I did metallurgy. And then at the age of 18, first recession in my lifetime came, and at IMI they said, do you want to stay on for a couple of years, because it really was an apprenticeship, or do you want to go to university, which I'd never thought about before. And I thought an opportunity to play football, women, drinking, or carry on working. I thought about it for an hour, and I decided to go to university. And I went to Aston University, which was renowned for its technology background, and studied material science, which was a combination of mechanical engineering, polymer technology, and metallurgy. So the metallurgy bit was quite easy because we'd already done 2 years. And I managed to keep the football going, the drinking, and the occasional night out with a lady who I married. And got a 2-1, which was great. And then I decided to do a PhD. And there was a PhD going in Leeds, which is 12 miles from where I live. And went to Leeds University and did a PhD in heat treatment of steels. And also got married the first week of my PhD. So running a family home and studying at the same time was a little bit different to just being an undergraduate.
Which was harder, getting married or doing the PhD?
Good question, Keith.
You're not going to answer it.
Good question, Keith. Excellent question. And then a local company called RHP Bearings, who made automotive bearings, were looking for a heat treatment specialist. They just bought a very large automated heat treatment plant, and I was a heat treatment specialist, and they were 2 miles from home, so hey, it was just a marvellous first step into management. And I was in charge of a laboratory of 6 people, a real good cross-section of human beings, and first question to myself was, what kind of management style was I going to adopt? And I thought, well, it's good to be nice to people. So I thought I'll adopt a nice laid-back style with them, which I did. In parallel, I was developing the processes on the heat treatment equipment, and we managed to get productivity up about 40% on it, which to the company was great. Big investment. They were getting more out of it than they thought they would. So Gary looks good on that side. On the management side, I got promoted after a year. Unfortunately, I got promoted at the right time. It occurred when they discovered that everybody in the laboratory on a weekend were making bacon, eggs, tomatoes, sausages on the hot plates for the factory and making a living out of it. So I got that quite wrong and I was a bit disappointed. Anyway, the company sent me to Lancashire, where they had a cast iron factory, and I was the quality manager there. 17 mechanical inspectors inspecting work and also involved in the foundry. And I decided here to adopt a slightly different management style, and that obviously the soft one didn't work. So I went to the other extreme of being a hard-faced manager. And within about 6 months, 9 of them were on warnings. Do you know, Keith, they weren't working with me? Yeah, because it really wasn't working. Anyway, worked there for about 3 years, and we progressed the quality systems. And this was now, late 70s, early 80s. And the big thing then, career-wise, was industrial relations, unions and smoke-filled rooms and negotiations, and a job came up at GEC, high voltage switchgear in Manchester, which isn't there anymore. A site of some 22,000 people, and in our division was 2,000 people, and I was originally I was the quality manager, in charge of about 40 mechanical inspectors, 30 electrical testers, an industrial relations hotbed. I spent days in smoke-filled rooms negotiating over nothing. Very difficult, very unrewarding kind of job. But that's where I learnt my sort of basic management. And the title of the book, Awful Management, for legal purposes, I won't say it's anything to do with GEC, high voltage switchgear, Manchester, Trafford Park, Union Times, but hey, there's a clue there.
Okay.
But during that period, I developed what was called then management by objectives. Basically, what's the organisation, who's doing what, how you're doing against it. And after 3 years, the Germans, Siemens, were building better equipment than we were, and the market was in decline, and they made lots of redundancies. And I managed to secure a job with probably one of the best companies in the world, which is H.J. Heinz, as in beans and sausage. I'm sure if you've been all around the world and dined in some fantastic restaurants, you come home craving for some beans on toast. So I went there originally as the warehouse and distribution manager. Big site, lots of people, and they were going through a de-manning program. And so I spent the first year with Grant Thornton doing work study and method study, looking at where we could save money, save jobs. And at the end of the year, it was then a case of, again, smoke-filled rooms, negotiating with the unions to de-man. And Heinz, being Heinz, did a great job in that they let all the older people go. It was all voluntaries, very good packages. So it was all done very, very well and very amicable. At this point, after 3 years, Yorkshire water, lovely. After 3 years, I got a job with 3i, which is the venture capital people. So this is early 80s. And at that time, they had a consultancy group. And I went in as a production consultant, quality consultant, productivity, BS 5750 quality systems as it was then, 9001 as it is now. And it was a great time because one day you could be working in a fish factory, the next day you could be working in a computer factory, and you were starting to interface with the accountants and with the marketing people. And after a year, they found out that, as we say in Yorkshire, the boy's got a gob on him, which means I could talk and I could actually sell. My boss moved on, and I ended up as the regional director in charge of 17 consultants covering north of England and Scotland. And these were manufacturing consultants, sales, IT, also a little turnaround group, and also, could you believe, a recruitment team as well. So interesting days, and I was there 4 years, and had a fantastic time with 3i. Then one of my clients sold his business to what was then called Initial, which was later bought by Rentokil. And he introduced me to Initial. And I ended up running their Allied Industrial Services in Bradford, which was garment manufacturing, rental, wipers for printers. You'd send a bag of wipers out, they'd come back, you'd clean them. And we had something like 1,800 people, various sites. And again, there was a lot of work study in there, method study, a lot of man management in there, a lot of commercial work, a big business. You know, so career-wise, there I was in my mid-30s, a main board director of a 250 million PLC. And so career-wise, you could say that, you know, in some ways that's quite stellar. And at the same time, a wealthy friend of mine was looking to invest and do something new. And we got our heads together and we bought a paper conversion business. So here was a very wealthy, very successful entrepreneur. Here was a very good corporate guy who'd come up very, very quickly. And when you think you can walk on water, you're about to drown. We bought this business, and it was a dog. It was a real dog. Because in the paper industry, which is what it was, paper conversion, taking big rolls of paper, cutting them down into smaller rolls. Paper conversion is a very posh way of saying we made toilet rolls. And margins on toilet rolls are wafer thin. I'm not going to crack any jokes on that one.
No, please don't.
And we decided that you couldn't make much money just doing the paper, so we developed dispenser systems, in that if your toilet roll will only fit in your dispenser and you can sell the dispensers, then clients are almost locked in to buying your paper products as well. And in fact, I find it quite nice when I go to my GPs that in their toilets are some of our dispensers 20 years on, which is great. So we did that together for 4 or 5 years, and then we sold the business. Managed to make a few bob at the end of the day, which was great. And then I got headhunted by some American guys who had raised £80 million in the US. They bought in very quick succession 3 plastic extrusion businesses, and one of them had a little sister company in British Auckland, and it was only a £4 million turnover business, but it was losing money. And they said, would you come in, turn it around and answer the phone? And I said, no, I'm going to keep going. So went in there. Originally I thought it's a bit small, and don't we keep going? We're going to keep going. And but they said, we're going to do more acquisitions, and we'd like you to then take over those acquisitions. So that's what we did. And in the first year we turned around this small plastic extrusion business, which had some of the classics in there. One, they didn't know what it was costing them to make stuff. They were taking on orders where it would take 10 minutes to set up the machine. They'd run it for 5 minutes. They were making small orders, so minimum order values were wrong. Production runs were too small. So we've got a lot of basic work to do. The organisation wasn't clear, who's running what, who's doing what. But we turned it around within a year. And then they bought a major competitor in Germany, which was a 30 million turnover business, so the largest in the industry. And they sent me over there because the Americans realised my second language is German, and therefore he must be the right guy for the job because he speaks German. And I got parachuted in to Germany to grow this business, and then they bought a Czech Republic business and another Czech Republic business, so my job became to consolidate these businesses. And but at the same time, we went from 4 million to 40 million, near enough, in about 3-4 years through growth and acquisition. At the same time, the American side of the business was going south, and they decided they had to sell all their businesses. Put the whole business on the market, very difficult to sell it, and in the end they sold the American part to some Americans, and we did a management buyout. So I'd done a management buy-in, I was now leading a management buyout, which was quite nice because I got a bonus to sell it, and I bought it with the bonus. So that was good. Then a year in, so again we're working with venture capital people. A year in, we closed the Bishop Auckland site, putting all that low-cost work into the Czech Republic. All the low-cost, low-price stuff that was in Germany moved to the Czech Republic. So we got nothing in England, and the investors quite rightly said, Gary, you now need to live in Germany. I'd been living out of a suitcase for 7 years, and I said, no, it's time for me to go home. So I went home, and in 2003, I set up Sheard European Management Consultants Limited, which for any marketeers watching is a mistake because it's far too long a name. So we call it SEMC. And originally I was going to do strategic consultancy, which is what I used to do back in the 80s. But back in the 80s, most MDs hadn't read Porter's book on competitive advantage, which is where we made our money as consultants. Now, of course, most MDs have read competitive advantage. And I very quickly found that wasn't a market for me anymore. But slowly I started to pick up non-exec chairmanship work, mainly manufacturing and technology, because of my background, and started to get into turnarounds on a regular basis. So from 2003 to about 2006, I was doing a combination of non-exec chairman work and turnaround work in various businesses. In 2008, I was approached by one of the people that gets me work on turnarounds. I nearly said pimp then, but I didn't use it. And he said, I've got one for you here. And I said, what is it? He said, I don't know what these words mean, but I think it's false arms and legs, prosthetics and orthotics and assistive technology. And this is a northern-based business, a large business. 95% of its business was in the NHS. And at that time, all that work was subject to regular renegotiation. And the contract prices, the NHS had really got the game together and were squeezing the prices down, which as a taxpayer is great, but as the guy running the business makes it difficult. And we said, look, we really need to find something new. We need to find a new product. So we put the word out, and sometimes in business you need a bit of luck as well. And we came across a guy in America, English guy, married to an American lady, who had worked for the Muppets, as in Kermit the Frog. And sadly his next door neighbour's daughter was born without a hand. And he developed a very basic animatronic hand. And he touted it around the world for quite a time, trying to find a backer. And he came to us, and we had a look at it, and we said, we're going to do it, which he nearly fell off his chair. And we did it. We set off, we put a development team together, we put a quality team together, production team together, and off we went. And just over 18 months later, we developed what's known as the bionic hand. Wasn't easy, because in development you never know what problems you're going to get till you get there. But we've got a great team, and we've got some great financial backers, big hearts, good nerves. And now, I mean, one of the great things when I look back that we've sort of achieved in life is that there's now thousands of amputees out there with a hand, and within a couple of hours they can tie a shoelace, which if you want to take your shoe and sock off right now, try and fasten, put them back on using one hand, you'll see what it's like. So that took us to about 2013, and the job was done in that we've got a thriving business, a growing business. In any turnaround situation, the aim is to ultimately pass the business back to the team. We'd put 3 good MDs in place, and we passed it back to the team. And so I came back then into consultancy, and so for the last 2 years I've been doing non-exec work, non-exec chairman work, again in technology and manufacturing businesses. But when I left that bionic role, for 6 months, it always takes time to get your business going again. I thought, right, I've hit all my database, they all know I'm available again, what am I going to do? And I thought, I've always had a book in me, I'd like to write a book. And having worked in every element of a business and knowing what can go right and what can go wrong, I thought I'll write a book on best management practice, aimed at sort of students, aimed at young business people that want to go through the whole thing, but with a mind's eye towards the fact that I wouldn't want them to make the mistakes that I've made and that other people have made that I've seen through my career, and maybe to accelerate the rate at which they can grow. And originally I was going to call it Best Management Practice, but I thought, who the hell is going to read that? It sounds as dull as ditch water. So taking an old marketing trick, let's turn it 180 degrees on its head. Let's call it Awful Management. And you can learn from your failures as well as from the things that you get right. And it took about 3 months to write. Launched it a year ago. It's going moderately well. There's over 1,000 readers out there, and on Amazon it's a 5-star rating. It was great fun, and the real dream is that it helps a lot of people with their careers, which brings me really up to today.
Excellent. Thanks very much for that. We'll come back to Awful Management a little bit later. Let's just for a moment or two explore the subject of private equity and venture capital, because for a lot of people this seems exciting. Fast growth, a lot of things that are happening that are new and so on. Just take it from the perspective of leading a private equity or VC-backed organisation. What to you as a leader are the upsides and perhaps the downsides of leading a private equity or VC-backed company?
Okay, well, what the money basically does, if you buy an apple for 10p and you sell it for 11p, you make a penny. So the rate at which you can grow is actually quite slow.
Yeah.
And if you take it that your customers aren't going to pay you straight away, you very quickly get into trouble. One of the good upsides of VC money or private equity money is it gives you money so that you can accelerate your business a lot faster. And if you've got a good idea and you've got a good plan and you execute it well, it is the right thing to do. There are, of course, downsides in that most entrepreneurs like to be their own boss. And, of course, VCs and private equity will let you be your own boss so long as you're being consistently successful. Well, business isn't always like that. There are good months, there are bad months, there are good years, there are bad years. And quite rightly, if they're not happy with how you're progressing, they will put a lot of pressure on you to succeed. And if you don't succeed, they will want to change the team. And again, that's quite right. So there's risk in going with private equity. There's more upside if you get it right. But the downside is if you don't get it right, you're not going to be there very long. But then that's life and that's business anyway.
If you're a relatively young person coming into a business that's PE or VC backed, how much of that sort of heat is translated to them, or is it part of your job as a leader to deflect the kind of heat that may come from the shareholders?
Well, it's the same in any business. First of all, how big's the business? How many layers are there between you and the top level? Determines the heat. What's the style of the leader? My own style is appreciate and encourage. You're there to motivate the team and develop the team. So it shouldn't make a difference because in business the pressure's always on to beat the competition anyway. So I don't think it's any different whether you're VC backed or not.
No, okay. And in terms of your own career, you moved from a sort of more corporate environment into the private equity VC environment where you operate with your own style, if I could put it that way. Was that the sort of one of the reasons for actually writing Awful Management, was when you actually realised that you were a different person in running private equity VC-backed businesses?
I mean, we're all different. Some people like to lead, some people like to follow. I was blessed, if that's the right word, in that I always like to be the boss. I always like to lead. Some people like to be led. So the real reason for writing Awful Management brings me back to a catchphrase of mine, which is, if you develop the people, you'll develop the business. And the book is really written to develop people as fast as possible to accelerate that. So they can develop themselves and develop in the business, which is good for the owners anyway. And that if their team are rocketing on, the business is going to rocket on. So it's a catalyst, it's an accelerator. Okay.
Let's just have a look at the pace of change, because both you and I, we've been in business a long time and so on. And yet the pace of change, as I see it today, is accelerating at an ever-increasing rate. Now, the experiences that you've had across 20, 30 years can be compressed now into a period of, say, two or 3 years. What are your own thoughts and views about the business environment within which we all work today?
Well, in some ways, I'd argue against you.
Okay.
There's a little piece on LinkedIn the other day, and there was the lion and chasing about 5 or 6 guys, and I'm sure we've all seen similar ones before. And we all know the answer is to not be the slowest guy. And I think it's the same in business. So long as you're faster than the others and are always developing, then that's how it is. I've got no real evidence to say that the pace of change is really any different than it ever was. I think the urgency to be in front of the others has always been there if you're going to be in front. Yeah. And again, one of my sayings in terms of running a business, that there are 4 basics. Get the sales up, get the cost down, get the cash in, or you run out of money. And the 4th is equally important: develop new products and develop your people for the future.
Let's just take develop people for the future. What What do you think that you've done that's been really successful in developing people?
Going back to the GEC days, one of my favourite stories. My boss, when I got recruited as the assistant quality manager. And the boss, who at that time, he may have been the awful manager, but for legal reasons I won't say. He said, we're taking you on as the assistant manager, quality manager, but we want you to be the quality manager. And being young and naive, I thought, oh, that sounds great. What a great plan. No times, no plans, just that statement. About 6 months in, I'm thinking, how do I know when I get there? How do I know when I'm going to get this job? Job. What is my job? Yeah, I'll have a think about that. What's my job? So I thought, scrap. Yeah, my job is to get scrap down. Rework, we do a lot of rework. Yeah, maybe my job is to get rework down. I've got 70 men. Maybe my job is to control costs. This accountant chap keeps giving me sheets with some numbers on. Don't know what they mean, but he keeps giving me these sheets with some numbers on. Maybe it's to get costs down. I know what I'll do. I'll start and track what's happening on scrap. Is it coming down? What's happening on rework? Is it coming down? What's happening on costs? Is it coming down? Customer complaints, is that coming down? And I developed a process where here's a graph that shows, and here's some words, what I'm doing about it. And graphs are marvellous things in that if they're going the right way, they motivate you. But if they're going the wrong way, they motivate you. And from this, I thought, job. So that's my job. And I came up with the phrase that's actually in the book. Acknowledgement from your boss for a job well done is a great motivator. Now, there's 5 elements into that. I used to think there was 4, but there's 5. Acknowledgement from your boss. So boss. Is there a clear organisation? One man, one boss. And if you do an analysis of how many businesses where there's a clear organisation structure, you know, it's not always. Acknowledgement from your boss for a job. Job. You remember the days of the big green filing cabinets and the job descriptions were 14 pages long and all that? You know, no. The job is like 4 headlines. Get the sales up, look after the sales costs. It's 3 or 4 headlines. Acknowledgement from your boss for a job. Well done. What's well done? Well done. I don't know if I'm doing well. Well, it's budgets, or it's targets, or it's deadlines. It's always something numerate. So acknowledgement from your boss for a job well done. Acknowledgement. Acknowledgement means different things to different people. It can be, well done, John.
Yes, an arm around the shoulder.
That's all right, that mate. It can be, here's your bonus. It can be, here's a promotion. But to be acknowledged, you've actually got to meet your boss. You've actually got to sit down and go, well, against that, you did really, really well. I acknowledge you've done really, really well. And if you think about pace of change and you can't get hold of your boss because he's on a plane or he's flying around or not just now, or one of the key tools is a diary. Now, they're electronic today, but I still prefer the paper one. Electronic is to get a date in the time in your diary with your boss or with your people that your subordinates to go through where you've been, where you're at, where you're going. And that process, which in the old days was called management by objectives, has been the heart and key of what I've done. Now, in the last 2 years, while I've been looking at a lot of LinkedIn stuff, I actually twigged that there's actually a 5th element in there. Acknowledgement from your boss for a job well done is a great motivator. Motivator. Motivate to do what? Motivate to do the vision. So this then develops a little bit wider in that if you look at the classic chart of how to run a business, at the top is vision. So where the hell are we going? And you've lived through the days of months in rooms working out what the vision is. Well, I like short ones, like improve people's lives, people-focused improvement. I like short ones. Then down this side is the management by objective stuff. Objectives, organisation, reports. But a big piece that's been missed is the cultural side. Because if you don't have the culture in the business that drives people to want to come to work, to empower them, to get them excited, all that doesn't happen. So to answer your question in a very long-winded way, I think by putting together that mantra, acknowledgement from your boss for a job well done is a great motivator, has been at the heart of just about everything I've done, and that's really what we've developed together, and that is how to drive and develop people.
Good. So, just finishing off, Gary, this book, Awful Management.
Excellent.
Yes. Turn left or right. Where can I find this? I mean, I've got my own copy, and thank you very much, and it is a great read. But where can people find this?
Well, self-published that on Amazon. So
Yes.
if you've got Kindle, you can get it on Kindle, or it's on CreateSpace. But if you just type in on Amazon, Awful Management, you'll get it.
Great stuff. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Gary Sheard. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you.